So even though we did the formal ones already, I thought this was kind of nice because it gives us a little bit more of a description about some of the stuff that we were talking about yesterday. So, for instance, I'm going to actually use some colors as I do this stuff, but that's okay if you don't. Um, okay, so my A value. This is going to be my stretch or compressed value. A is the one that determines, are we getting wider? Are we getting skinnier? Or maybe even, are we reflecting about the x-axis? So if your A value, that number in front, is positive, the parabola goes up every time. It doesn't matter if it's a fraction, a whole number, whatever it happens to be. If your A value in front is negative, your parabola is going to open downward every time. Again, whole number, fraction, it doesn't matter. Okay? If you're like, dang, I don't remember there being this much stuff with A before, but okay. If your A value is greater than 1, so like if it's 2, 3, 4, something like that, the parabola the curve, yeah, that U-shaped curve that we're doing, that is the parabola. Yeah, absolutely. So if the A value is greater than 1, the parabola will be narrower. It's going to be like it's stretching upward. Okay? We can call it stretch for official, but when you kind of think of it, it's just not as wide. It's getting narrower. And if your A value, your absolute value of A, is less than 1, in other words, it's a fraction, the parabola will get wider, or we called it compressed. So it's like we're smashing it down and it gets wider as we smash it down. Oh dear.
I like deer.
So A does all of our work with which direction we're opening and how wide or narrow our thing's going to be. And we don't talk about it as much because we kind of just do it, but it's not going to be anything that's bad. Okay? Now, H. Okay? H is the X value. What's that?
What do we put in the line that the arrow?
I'm gonna nab that in a minute. Actually, I can do that now even. That H is gonna tell me if I'm going to the left or if I'm going to the right with my graph. And so we're kind of gonna say the same thing down here. H causes the parabola to shift left and right, and like we had up here, the minus H will shift it to the right, and the plus will shift it to the left. And again, that seems so backwards. You're like, well, wait a minute. You know, right normally is positive and left is negative, but the issue here is that this is the opposite of H. So it's the opposite of what you would think. So the opposite of what we think for left is going to be plus. The opposite of what we would think for right is going to be minus. Let's see. One more color. Let's go with this. And then finally, my plus k is my up and down shift. It also is the y value of my vertex. So again, I mean, you've got it here, but I'll put it down here as well. So k makes your parabola go up and down, minus k will be down, plus k will be up. And you're like, k is not the what? No, no. K is not the y-intercept. Now, here's why I mentioned that. When we're graphing lines, the number on the end is always your y-intercept. But this isn't just a line, this is a parabola. And so, we're making sure that we don't mix those things up. And so, if you kind of look at it with your graph, okay, and I'm not going to fill in everything on some of these down below because we've done a good job with it up here. But just as a reminder that your vertex is always h and k. So like for this specific point that it's pointing at here, okay, your h value, because you're going over, and you're going down. So in this case, my vertex, we're just going to put my vertex in here, would be at -2, because you start at 0. And you go, how many do I go over to get lined up? I went left 2, and I went down 3. So that would be my vertex. When we get to the equation, it will be. Good question. You're kind of leading me right in, which is good. So since we're opening up, okay, my A value is going to be positive because I see it opening upward, my graph. Then my value of A, remember, is like our slope, kind of. We're going to count from our dot here to the next dot that we can see. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. I could put over 1, but I don't need to with these. That's why we don't worry about the 1 part. We're just worrying more about how many do I have to go up to get lined up with the next dots. Because we don't care about the left-right part, because we already know it's going to be positive because it opens up. Good question. And so now, I've got my vertex, I've got my A value, so now I can go ahead and make my equation, which is A, then X, and as you were saying before, it's the opposite of H in here. So since my H is -2, that would be +2 in there. And then my K value, that plus means we just keep it the same. And that would be my equation. So you kind of got to see everything at work here. How do I find the H and K? How do I plug that into the equation? What do the different things do? That's what I liked about this note sheet when I found it. So I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. So we'll keep this close. No more notes. This is the end of notes. And I'll freeze this back up here at the end if we need it. So in the practice packet, we're going to be on 9 and 10, but I'm going to turn it this way because this is the way these are. So we're on 9 and 10 here. I'm going to do one on each side, then I'll get out of the way. So here, if I'm looking at my notes, my vertex, I should be able to get without going to the calculator. You take the opposite of h, -5, and whatever the k value on the end is. Now let's see if we're right. So I get to y equals here. I don't want this other stuff. So we're just going to clear that out. So here's what I want. F of x is just a fancy way of saying y equals.
Why do they do that? Why? Straightforward.
Because when you're doing function notation, this allows, like let's say I'd say f of 2 or something. I put a number in for x. I can plug that in here and tell you what the y value is going to be that way. It's just a different way of doing it. We can still do x and y though. So I get that plugged in. I'm going to look at the graph first before I... So I notice I went left 5. I went up 2. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. So I should be able to go to -5, 2 and see my pairs around it. And I do. So let me move this for a sec here. So I've got, let's see here, x and y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. So there's my vertex. Then we got -6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. And -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. +6. And then I just do my couple on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This is how I always know if I've done this right. Because if I have, that same little shape is going to show up every time. So I get that in. Now here's a couple of things we didn't talk a lot about yesterday that we're going to bring back into play. Is my vertex here a maximum or a minimum? Am I at the top of the mountain or at the bottom of the valley here? We're at the bottom of the valley. So we got a minimum. The y-intercept always occurs when x equals 0. Use your calculator. It's going to be maximum if it's opening down, and minimum if it's opening up. You could just by looking and saying, hey, there's not a negative in front, because that means my a value is positive, so it's going to open up.
So since it's +5, it's...
Yeah, the max min determinant would be your a value in front. And if I don't see one, it's just going to be +1. Here, I can't see the y-intercept on my graph, but if I go to my calculator where x is 0, whatever the y value is would be my y-intercept. So that's another one. Again, I don't need to do a lot of complex things to be able to get that value that I need. Now, the other one I want to do, I want to look at one thing quick. Yep, that's what I want to do. We're going to do one on the back of this page too, because I want to make sure we get some negative in here. Ooh, that's even better. We're going to do number 8. We're going to do the last one. So before I start, we should be able to get the first 2 questions done. Question number 1. What's my vertex going to be? Number 8.
4, 7.
4, 7, because it's the opposite of my H, and we keep the K. My A value is negative. So when the A value is negative, the number in front, the parabola is opening down. So if the parabola is opening down, we are going to have a maximum. So there's lots of things that we can take from that. Make sure you use negative here on the 3, the negative there, not the minus. And get everything else in. So I peek at my graph before I graph it, and I notice it opens down, and I'm writing up. Hey, we're rolling. So if I get 4, 7 in the middle here, there's all my pairs. Now, we might have a little trouble fitting these in, but we're going to try. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Okay. 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And oofta, 2. Negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positive. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. That is long and stretchy. And again, keep life simple. For your y-intercept, just go to where x equals 0 on your chart and copy down the y value. That's it. That's it.
And we're just doing these 1 through 8.
Yep, just 1 through 8.
That's all today.
That's it.
Oh, thanks for making it easy.
I'm trying.
After my meditation,
I'm trying. So I will get the notes back up as well in case. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
South Thursday.
So let me freeze that. I will shoot. Oops.